I need a shave mega bad.
I know, I was about to say.
For all the video listeners,
I need a
you
shave
can
as well,
see.
to be fair.
Yeah, Dan, you put some milk on your top lip. The cat lick that off, bro. But what's happening, people? Episode 11. Sorry for all the visual listeners that have to put up with our faces yet again. If you're listening on Spotify, we've got a voice for podcasts, but we haven't got a face for video. I feel
like I could be one of those narrators for Audible because my voice is quite monotone.
Dan, if I bought an Audible book with your voice on, I'd get through like one chapter and I'd be kicked in.
Yeah, exactly. That's like every Audible narrator ever, bro.
Nah, Dave Goggins was a good Audible narrator.
Mm.
But no, hang on. Tell a lie. He done certain parts. Have you listened to the Dave Goggins audiobook?
No, I've seen like little clippets of it on like Instagram ads.
I really like what he's done with it. So he got one of his mates to narrate it. And then throughout the Audible book, so they'll read chapters, and at the end of a chapter, like Dave Goggins will come in and have a conversation with the guy that's narrating it, giving a bit more of a backdrop on like his thoughts and feelings around that time that you don't get if you read the book. And I really like that. It was something different that I've never heard in a podcast before, an Audible book, and I like the touch that they put with it. And no, sold me on that book. Really good book for any of the listeners. Try and watch, what's it called? Dave Goggins.
What's it called? Dave Goggins.
Look.
I love Audible, but like I use Audible more than I read.
Yeah, it's the Can't Hurt Me book by Dave Goggins.
But sometimes you just get a narrator like that just ruins the whole book, don't know.
Yeah, that would be you, bro.
I don't think I've ruined the book.
Fair. You'd have to actually get it done. But on that front, Dan, I think chatting books, give your top 3 book recommendations, because we've been asked this. Top 3 book recommendations.
Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker. Let me see the name of this book. I've written it down. I can't really remember what it is. I read it a while ago.
I'm rubbish at remembering titles.
Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, the US Navy SEAL. He's a fucking scary bloke. No, he's just cool as fuck. He's got a wicked podcast as well called the Jocko Podcast. And Sapiens and Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, which gives a little rundown of humanity and life.
I wondered if you were gonna. I wondered if you were gonna carry on. I'm not gonna some stuff
go
like
into
that.
like academic books or fitness related books because that's boring as fuck, and you get enough of that from us anyway. So go expand your horizons when it comes to reading. Like go read something. I don't know, The Hungry Caterpillar or something.
That's a good book though.
Sick book, bro.
My top 3 books would have to be probably one of the Mr. Men series. Like, on a serious note though, as a kid, the Mr. Men had a Mr. Men bus that you could put all the books in. And I had all 52 of the Mr. Men books. And I'd sit there and read them religiously as a kid. No wonder why I'm as smart and intelligent as I am now.
For the Spotify listeners, I rolled my eyes then about 3 times.
But on a serious note, I think I did like the Subtle Art Not Giving a Fuck.
I like that book. I like that book. Do you know, but the only thing I enjoyed that book when I read it, but it's just a book of pretty much like, yeah, you don't say. Like,
yeah,
no
but
shit.
At the same time, when you're reading it, it does put a bit of perspective on the things that you should actually probably care.
It's like when he says, you've already got so many fucks to give, so use them wisely and things like that.
Yeah, and I think you can reread that book whenever you're feeling a little bit like shit about things, you got a lot of shit on. You can reread that book and be like, right, you can align your priorities a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I was reading it through uni, and I think when I was there, I was like, yeah, I'm worrying about so much shit that I can't care about. And like, puts into perspective, like the older people are, they tend to complain, don't they? Because they've got nothing else to complain about. So that's their priority. But when you got a lot of shit on, it tends to mean that you can mask out some of the other stuff that you don't need to worry about. So that would be book number one. I do like the 4-Hour Work Week.
Never read that.
And no, it's a good book. It basically goes over how you like should define your wealth and stuff. Who's wealthier? A man that works 50 hours a week, take home £100,000, whatever, or a man that works like 5 hours a week and does what he wants, but is not as wealthy in the monetary sense. But the other one, then, I did really like the Dave Goggins book, but because we've already brought that up, I will not throw that in. And I did like Ross Edgley's first book, I think is The Art of Resilience. And I've heard his new book is absolutely sick and should be listened to.
The world's fittest book, is it? Is it the world's fittest book?
World's Fittest Book is his first one, and then The Art of Resilience is his second one. And I think The Art of Resilience is... obviously, I chatted to Sam Perkins about it, and he actually met Ross Edgley up in Loughborough, and they had a decent chat. And it kind of he's just that guy, You walk in and he's full of energy 24/7. Like you walked into I think it was in a gym. I think it was DW in Loughborough. Ross Edgley walked in, probably going to work out. Stopped, chatted for 45 minutes to someone. Didn't have to go do that. Asked him about his life, quizzed him, and no, I think this book encapsulates that he's a knowledgeable, but he's also a very, very...
I feel like people with influence who are like that and don't use it like that is you're completely wasting it. I get it if you're at such a high level of fame that you haven't got time to talk to anyone, but when you're like a person of influence, use that to your advantage to just chat to people as well. If I had that, I'm not just going to go up to any old random bloke and just start talking to him about his life. But if that person came up to me, asked me for a photo or something, I'd be I would definitely talk to him about, I would have a conversation with him just because, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think it doesn't... People don't realize how much of an effect they could have meeting someone like that. So, if it's one of your idols, for example, and you start meet to them, they chat to you and actually give a shit about you, that can change someone's outlook on something for probably permanently. Yeah. I know Sam, when he finished chatting to him, was that was one of the best moments. Like you were saying, just going up to meet one of his idols and then them actually caring. Whereas you can... I know I've been to body power, things like that.
I was just about to say, it's hard. It's horrible when you get disappointed.
Yeah, and you go to body power, and then I think who was it? Was it Ronnie Coleman was charging £10 a photo?
Yeah, same with Kai Green.
Yeah, Kai Green, Ronnie Coleman. You had to queue up for what, 4 or 5 hours just to go meet one person. That's probably half your day gone, and they're charging you money to have a photo with them, and it's straight out. Whereas I know the likes of Christian Guzman, I queued up for 5 hours to meet him, but you sat down and actually had a chat with him. He wasn't trying to be rude. He's like, look, I wish I could sit and chat to everyone, but there's a massive queue. But he does what is best. He doesn't charge people to come up and have a photo with them, whatever. But yeah, there's some people like that who let their ego get the better of them, don't they? And
yeah, it was the same with I was surprised when I met Rich Piana. I actually met Rich Piana I met him in Body Power, but I didn't queue to meet him. Yeah, I think did I queue to meet him? Yeah, I queued to meet Rich Piana. I didn't queue to meet Big Ramy. I met Big Ramy, but anyway, I met Rich Piana, and I thought this guy's just gonna be an egotistical wanker. And I met him, and he's one of the most down to earth blokes. Genuinely, I had about 5-10 minute conversation with him, and the persona that he has on camera is fucking what?
Right, babe.
Yeah, he's exactly like that. He's mental, bro.
Well, I had a little bit of a different experience with Rich Piana. So we caught him we caught him as he was leaving his stand, and we just managed to bump into him. We were hi mate, started chatting, any chance for a photo. Obviously, it's not like he's got a queue waiting for him, so it was probably that. But he was like, no, just like proper turned into a dick and was like, proper kicking off. I
Oh my
went
God.
asked to meet him, but the bloke I went with was like, oh, is it all right if you have a photo? No. And he was like, oh, come on, it'd take like 3 seconds. Come on, like, just.
Do you know I had an experience like that with? Eddie Hall.
I heard Eddie Hall was a bit of a knob as well.
He's a knobhead, bro. Like, honestly, Eddie Hall, if you're listening to this, sort your life out. I can't imagine you are listening to this, but if you happen to come across this, fuck you, bro. Nah. But yeah, I remember we were queuing with these bunch of lads who we met up there. We just chatted to them in the queue. And they wandered off to go see Eddie Hall because they see him walking. And they went, oh, Eddie, any chance for like a photo? And he was like, can't you see him walking this way? And they went, and he was like, yeah, exactly. And just walked off.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's because I think I caught Rich Piana in the same thing. Do you know when he was walking off to go somewhere?
Yeah, I know, but
And
like the fans pay your wage. Like, grow up, like,
I
get
know,
out your
but
ass.
I think that might be a running theme in these like fitness expos. I don't know if it's that they're actually knobheads or they're just fed up of shaking hands all day. You know what I mean?
I can imagine
And
the
then
novelty wears off, but there's no reason to be rude.
so they get like probably like a couple of toilet breaks a day, and in that time they just probably want to go chill out, and
Probably
then they got
hungry
people
as well.
yeah, probably, and then they got people hounding them. So I don't know. I don't think they're probably inherently knobheads, but yeah, just do a bit better in it. Come on. But on that topic then of idols and things like that, if you could sit down and have dinner with 3 people, past, present, who would it be? I've put you on the spot now.
Oh, anyone at all?
Anyone in the world?
Not even in the fitness realm. Not just in the fitness realm.
No, anyone.
I've had this conversation hundreds of times with people, and it's the same answer every time. It'd be Louis Theroux,
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay,
Right.
and probably Theo Von.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why?
Why?
Wow,
Just
all 3. Why?
Louis Theroux, like, he'd have a crazy perspective on things, and he's just a nice guy. He just is a nice guy. Like, I can't imagine he's a dick. He's just very, like, seems very nice. Gordon Ramsay, just because, like, you know why. Again, pretty nice guy, but also funny as fuck. Bit of a mouth on him. And Theo Von, just because if you know who Theo Von is, he's just the most interesting guy, and he's a comedian, so he has that comedic
That's Dan's
value.
Man Crush Monday.
I wouldn't say he's my man crush, bro. He's
Von.
funny as fuck. He's so funny.
No, Man Crush Monday is Theo Von.
Bro, do you know when he was born? Do you know how old his dad was when he was born? 70.
No.
70.
What?
His dad was 70 when he was born.
Oh, fair. That's a bit odd.
Yeah.
Like that, though. Good effort.
So he was probably like the very last sperm.
Yeah, the last sperm.
Like, you have to shut up shop and everything. Close all the shutters down.
Like in Planet Fitness, key in the door, and turn it down, shutters coming down, alarm on. No, fair.
Would you say?
Interesting choices. So I would probably say I would like to sit down and chat with Christian Guzman. I feel like I'll give my why as I'm going along. So I think he's when I first started watching him back like 8-9 years ago now, I don't really keep up with his day-to-day stuff, but I'm still impressed by what he does now. But like, he just started out, he had a dream of like opening up his own gym, whatever, started PTing, opening up his own gym, online coaching. But like the amount he's progressed and utilized his following is absolutely unreal.
He's like the Jeff Bezos of fitness, bro.
Yeah, so he's for those who don't know, he started off in a little gym, no bigger than the playpen. Then upgraded again, started growing his social media. Now he owns an energy drink company. He's in the process of opening up a meal prep company. He's got a hotel. He's got a gym. he's got like 4 other companies that have branched out, all his mates that have set up through him and that are now running in his HQ. It's just
Alpha Land, innit? It's called Alpha Land or something.
Alpha Land, that's the one. Yeah, he's got like 3 gyms now. And I don't know, I just like that business growth mindset, and it's applicable to the fitness sense as well. So I'd quiz him a little bit on that. Then I'd really like to meet David Attenborough.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine he's seen some things, you know what I mean? And I imagine being like one of the camera crew that goes out and films all that. That would be sick.
Yeah, but at the same time, have you seen like how long they've got to wait to get those shots? I've seen like the
That's what I
behind the
mean.
scenes and stuff. They're there for days.
Months, bro. I remember they were on about one shot. They waited like 300 days to film something, and it finally happened, and everyone was like over the moon. And then the last person, I would probably sit down and have an interview with Dan Bilzerian. Like, sit down, have a chat to him.
Crazy guy.
That's what I mean. Like, imagine the stories that come from him. You sat there, what do you get to do this weekend? Rattles off. It's just...
I know it sounds like... What about Mike Tyson as well? Because he went from being like the baddest motherfucker in boxing. Like, you could not fuck with him. Like, the craziest guy. Like, the nastiest bloke.
He's the nastiest.
He is the nastiest. And now he's just like some mellow, like, pothead who just is really loving and doesn't want to fight. And, you know...
Have you listened to the Hot Boxing with Tyson?
I haven't.
Oh, it's quality. So I think it's like a podcast they run, and they just smoke weed on the podcast and just get other like people in, and they all smoke weed together. And he was on there. I listened to the one with Evander Holyfield, and Tyson's just cracked, absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, he is. I watched his Joe Rogan podcast, and I was listening to the
there's
shit
so
he was
many
saying,
people out there.
He had like 2 pet tigers at one point.
No, not just 1, 2.
Yeah, like, fuck that. What the fuck?
Bit odd.
Anyway.
But I think we are rolling with a little bit of a Q&A style. We've had a couple of questions. As you know, we haven't done a listener questions at the end of an episode for quite a while. So we thought, let's do one and roll some of the questions that we've had in that time into one little segment, and we can have a discuss, chat, probably have a little bit left. So, Dan, do you want to take us away with the first question?
So, I got a question. How strict do I have to be when shooting for a goal, i.e. fat loss, muscle gain, etc.? So, my answer to that is depends on how bad you want the goal. I know I say it depends a lot.
I know, I was waiting for the it depends, because that's exactly what I was going to say.
I know I say it a lot. It depends. It depends what you've got laying on that goal. If it's just like, I don't know, prepping for a holiday, or, you know, or prepping for a bodybuilding show, obviously it's going to differ. So I would say weigh up the positives and negatives and how bad you want that goal, really. But I would say if you really want a goal, you'd have to have a decent level of self-discipline and strictness. And, you know, you haven't got to be chicken and rice and broccoli, but I would say there definitely should be some routine and relative consistency there. Training is managed well, that kind of thing. But you've also got to weigh up, like, can you really do what's optimal, i.e. cutting out alcohol, cutting out junk foods, cutting out off-plan meals and shit like that. Ideally, across that whole time frame, you're probably not going to have a time where you're not going to do either one of those. So you're not really crossing into the optimal realm. This is where I say it differs between being a bodybuilder and being like a recreational trainee. However, you can still have an effective, like, sort of time frame of goal achieving without doing the optimal. So you've got kind of like 3 boxes where you've got like optimal, realistic, and, you know, Effective. So what's effective doesn't necessarily mean optimal, but you still get into the goal. However, optimal you'd get to the goal faster. You'd probably exceed your expectations, but you'd have to sacrifice a hell of a lot more, which would then make that process a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and
So
I
you've got
think
to weigh in the realistic as well with that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to three things. It depends on how extreme the goal is. So if you, for example, if I wanted to turn around and say I wanted to run a like 2.5 hour marathon, I know for a fact that I am so far off that I would need to be 100% on it,
Strict,
like
100%.
optimal. Yeah, because that
There's
goal
no
is so
room.
far away. There's no room to just be like, oh, I'll get on the beers this weekend. I'll miss a training session, this and that. I'll go off my diet. That's one thing. So is how extreme the goal is, the time frame you're in. Usually, the longer you've got to prep for something, the more far from the optimal you can get. So the more you can enjoy yourself, because you've got a longer time frame, you've got a bit more time to play with. You don't have to be 100%. If you've got a goal that's going to take 8 weeks and you've got 8 weeks to hit that goal, you've got to do everything in your power to do that. But if you've got 20 weeks to hit what could be an 8-week goal, oh yeah, there's plenty of wiggle room there for you to deviate off, move closer to that realistic and further away from that optimal. And then finally, I think, is how selfish you want to be. So a lot of fitness goals and fitness, business, health related goals are quite selfish. So you're doing it only for you. At the end of the day, no one really cares if you're in a little bit better shape or not. No one really cares if you're, say, as a PT, pushing more clients this week. No one really cares if, you've actually hit that 300 kilo squat. The only person that cares is you. So it depends how selfish you want to be with it. If you're a competitive powerlifter, you're probably going to be selfish. If you're a professional rugby player, you're going to be a bit selfish because that's for you at the end of the day. But if you're just someone that's, looking to enjoy their quality of life a little bit better, you don't really have to worry about being too selfish. You can still go out, enjoy those foods that you like, go out for drinks with your friends, things like that. You can go off plan a little bit because you're not really too worried about the end goal. You're just worried about the process and enjoying yourself a little bit better. But if you've got an actual set in stone goal, you're going to have to be quite selfish, which means you're going to have to move further towards that optimal to achieve the goal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, people don't realize how hard it is to actually adhere to, say, like a 12-week diet when you've got so many outside influences, like your mates want to go for food, your mates want to go for drinks, your hormones saying, oh, I'm hungry now, the actual drive to get up, do your cardio to go to the gym, then like a couple of hours later have to go do your strength stuff. There's a lot of selfishness
It's
in it, and
hard.
there's a lot of willpower, and that's why I say I'll never, but that's why I'll highly unlikely do a bodybuilding show, because I honestly don't think I would want to get to that level of selfishness, get that level of optimal and that much consistency, because it's just not for me, because it's so extreme.
It's a lot of
And
sacrifices.
yeah, and I'm not willing to make those sacrifices. But at the same time, if you're willing to make those sacrifices, then you probably want to be better off getting towards that optimal, because you're going to get better results from it.
Yeah, it relates back to what I said. Like, what have you got weighing on that goal?
Yeah.
Like, if that's your paycheck, fuck me. Like, you shouldn't be being realistic. You should be the reality is, if you don't fucking be in that sort of like optimal realm, and you're not consistent, and you're not putting everything into it, you're gonna get out what you put in. And if you put half-assed effort in, well, not necessarily half-assed, but if you're a little bit sort of lackadaisy about it, you're gonna get those kind of results, and it's not gonna reflect. Your results are not gonna reflect the work. They are gonna reflect the work you put in. So ultimately, it depends what you've got weighing on that goal.
And I think there can be certain time scales where you do prioritize selfish goals. And then there's time scales where you can, be a little bit more. You don't have to be 100% optimal 100% of the time. You can balance between, say, doing something really, really optimal in your cut, for example. Say you got 12 weeks of cutting, day dedicate the first 4 weeks of those to testing the waters, 8 weeks of optimal, and then, if that's something you want to do. But if you're, like Dan said, paychecks on the line, you're doing a bodybuilding show, you can't cut corners. And if you want to cut corners, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. Right. Next question. We are going with, how much protein can you absorb at each meal? And the answer is...
answer?
It depends.
It depends.
Yeah,
it's individualized.
What I would always advocate is trying to split your protein evenly through each meal. So at the whole meal timing doesn't matter. That's true for body composition. Like, you can eat whatever, but for performance, things like that, you might get an added benefit of splitting up your meals evenly throughout the day, things like that. And especially with protein, because there have been studies on how much protein you can uptake and absorb from that. So it is probably beneficial to split your protein up evenly across, say you have 4 meals and you need 200 gram of protein, hit 50 gram of protein in each of those 4 meals, and you should be golden.
Yeah, I would say, like, the kind of number thrown around from everything I've read is pretty much anywhere between 20 to 40 grams per meal.
Yeah.
You won't really see any kind of quote unquote normal person needing more than that per meal. So I would just say keep protein feeds regular, to kind of keep that, protein synthesis kind of going. However, you're never really going to be in a state where muscle protein breakdown is an issue, unless you are obviously drinking alcohol or training.
And I think that is the little, nuances to it that people don't really need to worry about if they are just general folk coming into
it's the minutiae.
Health and fitness. Yeah, that's the word, minutiae.
Just hit your macros each day. Like, be sensible about it. Like, don't just have a 120 gram protein shake at the end of the day, because the likelihood is you're going to shit most of that out.
Yeah, so be smart with it. My advice is try and split your meals evenly, because you know what you're going to get in each meal then.
And
so
protein...
if you've had...
Keep going. No, go on.
So
go on.
If you had 50 gram at breakfast, 50 gram at lunch, you've got 100 gram left. You can just split it up evenly. It takes an extra bit of thinking away from it, and you get into the habit of knowing what a portion size is then. So if you rotate, say, chicken, beef steak, beef mince, turkey, and you know what 50 gram of each of those look like, it's pretty easy to devise a meal then. And you don't have to worry too much about, how much protein. So, like, how much protein's in this meal now? If you know you've got 1.5 chicken breasts, that's 50 gram protein. You know what I mean?
I would say as well, protein is highly satiating as well. So the more regularly you eat protein, you're not going to feel as hungry throughout the day. Like, if you have a massive spike in, like, where you eat carbs, and the carb source you have is, like, relatively high on the glycemic index, it's not going to keep you full. You're going to eat it and you're just going to be pretty hungry quite soon afterwards. So keep protein feeds just regular, and about in between that 20 to 40 gram mark per meal, and keep the meals regular. Like, if you do need, like Joel said, he uses an example of a person that would need 200 grams of protein a day. The likelihood of that is their caloric needs are relatively high, so they would have more feeds. So more like 6 to 7, I would say.
Yeah, or you can have 3 meals and a shake. That's where shakes come in handy, I feel like, is an easy digestible source that you can just, have at the end of the night, for example, after the end of a training session.
I would say there definitely is an upper limit of what you can kind of utilize in one meal, mind.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think that's
as long as you stick with that kind of as long as you stick with that kind of sort of, regular protein feed, split my protein up into even parts throughout the day. That's probably the best thing for anyone to do. And then you can go into, like, meal timing and stuff if you want to, but we're not going to go into that.
Right. Next one. I think this is a good one for listeners, because it's that minutiae again. Passive versus active recovery tools. So what's your thoughts on massage guns, Compex, cryo legs? I don't know what they're called. Game readies, things like that. What's your thoughts on those?
I've not really done much looking into it. I know they don't do a great deal. They definitely are like sort of, I know a massage gun is more of an analgesic tool, which kind of just makes you feel a little bit better. It's more of an acute relief of sort of like DOMs, and sort of it's good to get blood to the area, especially during a warm up. Like if you want to prime a muscle, or say if you were going to do like a mobility session, or you were going to sort of go into your warm up, maybe a sort of like a percussion therapy gun is good for that, just to get a little bit of blood around the area. But I wouldn't spend too much time on it, because ultimately it's going to offer you very little in regards to recovery. But I would say the biggest factor for recovery is the things that you don't think about, like nutrition, sleep, that kind of thing, managing training volume well. Those are the things that are putting you in that hole. So manage those things well. Like the tools that you can utilize are probably not going to offer you nearly as much as what those other things offer you.
Yeah, and that's in agreement with me that if you understand that the massage gun, the Compex, those things are the extra 1% on top of what you should already be doing, which is managing your training volumes, making sure you sleep in at least 7 to 9 hours a night. If your nutrition's on point, your training, everything that you can control that is going to have the bigger effect in it is managed well, then you might realize that you don't really need a percussive gun. You don't really need muscle stim. You don't really need that unless you are in that elite bracket that need that extra 1%. I feel like too many people rely on the fact that, oh, you know what, I'll just put my massage gun on it later on, then it'll be fine. When in reality, if you slept a bit more and managed your training appropriately, you wouldn't need that massage gun at all.
What I'm seeing is like people with massage guns now are just using that as their warm up. Like they blast it over their chest and shoulders, and they like, oh shit, I'll go into my top sets. And I'm just like, they should have stayed at like 600-700 quid, because now everyone's buying them, and literally like, that's just what people are using for their warm ups and stuff. And I'm just like,
they're the same people that are looking for a quick fix in their training, things like that. Just realize that, the boring stuff that you should be doing is the stuff that's going to get you the majority of the results. Don't worry about the minority when you haven't got the majority just yet.
Yeah, that covers that.
On your question,
what's the best lifting shoe?
Hands
in
down.
Brackets for each lift.
Hands down, right? I'm just going to put it out there. The higher the heel, the better. Get yourself a pair of 7-inch stilettos. Ankle mobility, no more.
When you've got the ankle mobility of a fucking forklift like Joel.
I've got the grace and decorum of a reversing dump truck.
Yeah. Ideally, 2 pairs of Romaleos
stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
With a heel lifting surface.
You buy a pair of Romaleos, cut the bottom off one, stick them to the bottom of the other ones, and then get a heel elevator that you can buy from like Strength Shop or something. That's the best lifting shoe. No, but ultimately it depends like what discipline you're doing. So, like deadlifts, I would say either like deadlift socks, Converse, anything flat.
Yeah, so the typical things I run for are, if you're deadlifting, you want to be as close to the ground as possible. So that means that Converse are usually a good shout. Vans, things like
boxing shoes.
I got myself a pair of, the old Nike. Shoes. Yeah, so they're going to be the best things for deadlifting usually. There are some exceptions to the rule where some people prefer lifting in a raised heel because it allows them to get a bit more quad activation, but, majority. Then for squatting, I would usually say get a weightlifting shoe no matter who you are. So even if you have got adequate mobility, that raised heel plus with the ankle strap is going to give you that stability that you might lack as well. So that shoe is going to benefit your squatting performance, and then that translates into things like weightlifting. So if you're snatching, clean and jerking, the weightlifting shoe personal preference on those. I used to rock with the Adidas, but I found they run a little bit small. I come out the sides of the toe box, so I've upgraded to a Nike Romeo, and I've gone with the Nike Romeo 3 XD. So that's what I'm rocking with at the minute. I do like the Adidas Lausstangs, I think they pronounce. That's with the 1-inch heel, and I found that is really beneficial having that extra 0.25 inch in the heel for my absolute
I've had a few
ankle.
pairs, like I've had the Adi Powers, I've had the Romoleos. I briefly had those Adidas ones with the wooden heel. I can't remember what they're called, the white and silver ones.
They're lovely though.
Yeah.
I think if you are a general all-around lifter, like cross lifter, the Nike Metcons or something similar to that is going to be a really good all-round
That's a good all-rounder.
Yeah,
because you can get, they come with a heel elevator as well.
Yeah, the new one's got a heel elevator. They do lack that extra ankle strap, which is going to create that extra stability. But they've got a heel lift. They've got they're quite relatively flat to the ground. I think they're a 0.2 inch heel. With the heel lift, they got the 0.75. You can run in them. I wouldn't really recommend really long distance running. Probably anything under 800 meters, you're fine. Then they're really good for things like thrusters, wall balls, assault bike. You're going to get the bulk of your work done in a Metcon if you've bought them.
Fuck that. Everyone should just wear Vibrams.
Right, we haven't touched on your barefoot training.
Vibram 5 fingers.
So I haven't really done much research onto the foot strengthening. I think there's got to be an element of foot strengthening in there. But at the same time, if you are heavier and you decide you want to start barefoot running, probably rethink your strategy to strengthen your feet. That's my opinion. You don't really need that extra.
Yeah.
Sorry for listeners.
Yeah, but I just think they look ugly. And I'm sorry, there's like, if you wear Vibrams, I've got a pair of Vibrams, Pint.
Have you? You're one of them.
Yeah. They are really comfy though. I really like the Vivos.
The Vivo barefoot are looking nicer.
I've not got a pair of them yet, but they look sick. Like if I was like, I would use them to go out and do my steps.
Fair.
Rather than like a running shoe or something like that.
Right, on to the next question. Dan, how should I be warming up for my training?
Don't go run on a treadmill for 30 minutes. Maybe don't go on the watt bike for half an hour and then just go straight into your weightlifting. That's what I see a lot of people doing. It's just their warm up is literally cardio and then the resistance training. I like to follow like a modified ramp protocol.
Jeffries 2007.
Ramp is a warm up protocol coined by Ian Jeffries. Raise, activate, mobilize, potentiate. So raise body temperature, get blood around the extremities, mobilize the joints they're going to be utilizing in that session, activate the muscles, and potentiate yourself for the movements you're about to perform. That is more applicable to a performance-based session. So if you're going to do like a power session or, a running session or weightlifting session, for example, you may do some, depending on access to equipment, you could be doing like some shuttle runs to raise body temperature, not very like relatively low intensity. Mobilize, you'd be doing some sort of like dynamic sort of exercise where you'd mobilize the joints that you'd be performing. So you could be doing like dead bugs, lunge rotations, shoulder circles, that kind of thing. Activate the muscles you're going to be working, but that would kind of come in the mobilization if you're going to be moving from one stretch to another. So kind of like glute activation, back activation, lat activation, rotate cuff, that kind of thing. And then you'd move on to a potentiation, which means you're just going to prime your sort of like nervous system for the activity that you're about to do. So pre-exciting the muscle, So doing some sub-maximal jumping or stuff like that, sub-max sprinting, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like a linear process, gradually introducing yourself into the session. But I don't go through that whole thing. I'll kind of raise body temperature. We'll spend like 2 minutes on that, and then go through some like textbook stretches that I've got. I've got a little like arsenal of mobilization and stretches that I like to do, co-activation. So I'll do dead bug, bird dog, variation of a rotation. So I might do an open book, thoracic spine mobilization, shoulder activation, hip mobilization, that kind of thing.
A star. Well done, Dan. So with me, the old static stretching thing versus active methods. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, static. Yeah, that's only weird then. So static stretching, dynamic. That's the one, not active. So static is where you just stretch. So that'll be something like a couch stretch, pigeon stretch. And dynamic is things like hamstring kicks, side leg raise, like side leg kicks, things like that. And I feel there's a blurred line at the minute because whole static stretching is supposed to reduce your power output coming into subsequent movement. So, for example, if you was to really lengthen hamstrings through something like I'm trying to think of it, like active leg. What's a good hamstring stretch? So where you just put your foot up on something and kick back and you just lengthen the hamstring and you're going through extreme ranges there, like a straight leg raise, something like that. That is going to reduce the power output of the hamstring. So it's probably not ideal if you're going into like heavy deadlifts or something where you want them to be tight and fire in. But there's a trade-off and there's a certain point where I feel like static stretching does come into it. And that is if you lack the mobility to get into those positions. So I know for myself, it was a big work on in weightlifting that I couldn't get into a nice overhead squat. I couldn't get into a deep front squat, things like that. So I would spend a lot of time in my warm-up static stretching to solidify the position where the trade-off of having that reduced power wasn't too much of a worry because my strength levels far exceeded my mobility. So you've got to find a balance. If you can't hit a nice overhead squat and you think, I don't want to reduce my power output coming into an overhead squat, you're going to miss out on the benefit of having that good technical foundation there that you probably can't express your power well enough anyway to worry about that. So for me, if you lack severe mobility, focus a bit more on static stretching, getting into those positions, prolonged times in a bottom of a squat, things like that. But if you're completely mobile and, you're in the positions fine, do a little bit of that if you feel like you need to. But then the majority of things comes from, like Dan said, doing the whole raise, activate, mobilize, potentiate. So something like that for me would be, 2-3 minutes on a bike, Stairmaster, something like that. Or the raise bit can be done through doing the actual warm up quick. So doing your activation stuff, your mobilizing stuff, little rest in between, getting the heart rate up. That's probably the best way you can do it. So doing your activate stuff, doing your mobilize stuff, potentiating for me is just usually getting under a barbell at lighter weight. So always start off with a barbell, build yourself up in those, get used to that firing pattern, and then you're golden.
Efficient.
Beep, beep, beep. No one saw that. So
Question.
Dan, next question.
Considerations when taking pre-workout. I know Joel takes the pre-workout to the dome and Daniel doesn't. Why is this?
Because I'm hard and Dan's a little puss.
No, it's not true. My opinion is that anyone who takes it to the dome is ill-informed and is doing themselves a disservice and wasting their money simply because they're not getting the most out of the pre-workout, because most of the ingredients in a pre-workout are water soluble. The ones that are not, they'll still get sort of like uptake when the pre-workout's in your system, but you typically need a good 500 milliliters of water per pre-workout serving for most of those ingredients to kind of partition into your body. So when you just take it to the dome, ultimately it's not gonna release as efficiently. You're just going to kind of get a clump of powder in the stomach, and you're not going to get a sort of acute release of those ingredients, and you might sort of get like a delayed sort of and suboptimal response from the pre-workout. So effectively, the pre-workout just isn't going to do its job as well if you shotgun it.
My rebuttal to that is,
and if you say, right, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you here, but if you say like it's a psychological fact of just chinning a pre-workout, just get somebody to slap you across the face instead. It has the same effect. You're not wasting any money.
I mean, it's my money, waste what I want, but the
I get
psychological
you.
effect, it is something for me that when I'm there, is because I've always done it. For some reason, before I go in for a heavy squat, heavy bench, heavy dead, something like that, I will scoop it straight to the mouth, swill it round. It gives me that little tingly mouth feeling. I'll drink it down. And that is one of the things that helped me flick that switch. So I also get slapped. I also do a lot of other pump up techniques, but it's something in my head that I've ingrained. I used to do it with straight caffeine. So it would be a scoop of 300 milligram of caffeine. Didn't waste my money on a pre-workout, but that tastes like absolute oop, and I like some flavor.
Arguably, then though, you are just delaying sort of your recovery or making your recovery a little bit less optimal because you're taking that pre-workout relatively late into the session, when that pre-workout really realistically isn't gonna hit you until after the session's over.
But
so
this
where
is
you want
you
like in that sort of
Hang
like
on.
PSNS.
You broke up then, bro.
Right, okay. I'll go back to what I was saying. So basically I was just saying that if you're taking a pre-workout mid-session, ultimately you're just going to delay your recovery post-session because that caffeine isn't really going to properly partition into the blood until after the session. It can take up to 90 minutes for caffeine to sort of like be fully active in the body, and the half-life of caffeine is like 5 to 7 hours. So you'll still get, so if you take 400 milligrams of caffeine, 7 hours later you might still have 200 milligrams of that in. If you're training kind of like midday, that caffeine's still in your system at 7 p.m, half of that dose you've had. So it's then going to take a further 7 hours to be fully out of your system. And also, you don't really want to be stimulated after your session. You want to pretty much chill out, calm down, not be in that sort of sympathetic state where you're not going to be able to, optimize food. And yeah, that's my
Yeah, that's the
rationale.
scientific. So that is why I will normally take a big scoop at the start of the session.
Scoop.
Take a big scoop at the start of the session. Before I usually do a little bit of mobility before I start the session. So before I make my heavy squat, it'd be 45 to about 60 minutes into that first scoop. And then if I am going for something heavy, I will not take a full scoop. I'll take a little bit of a scoop to get that taste effect and that thing. I'm not actually relying too heavily on the actual ergogenic aid of, the caffeine and everything. It's just So I'll probably take about, say a scoop's that big, I'll take that much. For listeners, that's probably like a quarter of a scoop. But I do agree with Dan on everything. That's why I don't really take pre-workout much. I normally opt for like an energy drink or something. I'm not asked about the benefits.
Even a coffee.
But Dan, maybe that's why whenever I log on to Warzone, then I'm fucking better than you, bro. I still got that caffeine floating about.
Potentially.
Big brain.
I don't really like to have any caffeine after 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's just my preference.
Fair preference.
And if you want to maximize, if sleep is your issue, probably look at timing your caffeine a little bit earlier in the day, because if you didn't know, you probably still got half of that dose kicking around in your system at night. And if you're one of those late trainers, sack the pre-workout off completely unless you're like a shift worker. Like,
or go for a pump formula.
Or go for a pump formula. Because ultimately, you are just negating most of your... The benefit it's like that trade-off that Joe was talking about before. You get a trade-off in adaptation because the benefits of pre-workout do not outweigh the benefits of a good sleep.
Hands down.
So stop taking pre-workout at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Simple as.
Find a better time to train.
Either train before work if you can. I'm not saying like, I hate those people who are like, you've got 24 hours in a day, make time. Like, shut up. I don't want to be... if I work 12-hour days, I don't want to be in the gym for an hour. Fuck off. Like,
but at the same time, then that's where you've got to prioritize your training and stuff, and that's where you can put in an appropriate training thing. Because a lot of shift workers have offs. So if you've got a good coach, when you've got the offs, that's when you can get the bulk of your training in, the good quality stuff. And on those days where you are on shift and you're working a big, long, say 12 hours, you maybe come in and do a bit more of your active recovery stuff. Like, let's just tick over.
Another consideration for pre-workout is understand that your body desensitizes to caffeine. So your tolerance level will increase within a week, I would say. So if you take pre-workout every session for a week, you're not getting the same benefit at the end of that week out of it. So I would definitely only take pre-workout for those necessary sessions and deload off pre-workout relatively frequently to get the most benefit out of it. Because you're paying 40-50 quid for a supplement, you want to be getting the most out of it, so don't abuse it. There's a difference between use and abuse, and you can definitely abuse pre-workout, and I feel like a lot of people do. Say it louder for the sisters in the back.
Right. I think we got time for one more question.
One question.
One question. So, have you got any big womper bumpers? Like,
I like this question. What are some of the noticeable themes you've come across in personal training, i.e. trends, gimmicks, exercises, etc., during your time as a personal trainer?
So the big thing at the minute, obviously, is HIIT. Like, that's sold massively over lockdown. Whether it's right or wrong, we won't get into the debates of that. If you want to listen to our thoughts on HIIT, you can watch episode 1 of the Archive podcast where me and Dan discuss our feelings and thoughts towards it. But that's one of them. The big things, I don't think there's many gimmicky things with training too much in PT.
No.
There's obviously some people trying to sell you the dream within new exercises. So you got the Bosu ball, things like that, vibro plates, all that stuff. But they don't really take off because they're not very good. So the frog, hang on. I'm going to put this out there. You know the frog? You've all seen it. It's a machine with 4 wheels with a belly pad, and the wheels extend
it's
and
like
come
a
back.
thrust. It's like a kind of thruster.
And it's supposed to be for abs, right? It is the most pointless piece of shit equipment, right? And if anyone used it, then literally...
Mike O'Hearn invented it, didn't he?
I know, yeah. If you use the frog, you can literally frog out the gym in it and then just like frog down the M4 somewhere.
Frog off a fucking long cliff or something.
Yeah, like take a long frog off a short cliff.
If I don't want to talk to someone, I'm just gonna go frog off, bro.
Yeah, like the frog is literally the most pointless bit of equipment. So
yeah,
for a start, it is the hard. I've jumped on it to just see why people would jump on it. You know, steering it, you probably need a license, bro. It is ridiculous. You're on there, you got to kick your legs out, kick your legs to your chest, and it moves, and you're like this constantly around the gym. No, that's the worst thing that I've seen in the training space for quite a while. The frog.
What I notice is just the difference between, like, obviously there's older PTs and younger PTs, and I feel like there's quite a large difference in philosophy. So I feel like sometimes the older PTs kind of stick to the kind of classic, sets of 10 for hypertrophy, sets of 1 to 3 for strength, eat well, those kind of things. Like carbs are bad, and if it fits your macros is not necessarily a beneficial way of achieving fat loss. Where I feel like now some of the younger practitioners, I'm speaking on, because I'm young, I'm one of those younger, but typically are a little bit more open now to, it's easily for me to say because I've got some sort of bias towards being a younger practitioner, but try and take what I say as like me not trying to blow smoke up mine and Joel's asses or any younger PT in the realm. I feel like they take on information a little bit better, and they're a little bit more open to sort of like new views. Whereas I feel like, the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I feel like if a younger personal trainer tried to sort of like rationalize something that maybe an older personal trainer wouldn't agree with, I feel like they'd have a much harder time rather than the opposite.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not enough critical thinking sort of like among older personal trainers.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing of it worked before. And just because it works doesn't mean it's optimal for you. And we always try and chase towards that optimal. And sometimes in training, optimal is easier to reach, for example, because you haven't got the trade-offs of like having to make those sacrifices and stuff. Is, which exercise is better? Which is this? Which method's better? And a lot of the time, because something works doesn't mean it's like the be all and end all of you. So I know a lot of people hold on to, I done keto, I done keto, I done paleo, I done this, I done that. Well, that worked for me then. Yeah, just because it works doesn't mean it's optimal. You've got to think about the understanding principles of it. So calories in versus calories out is the principle of nutrition. Yes, there's a lot more nuance that goes into it, but on the basis, if you eat less calories than you burn, you're going to lose weight. And if you eat more calories than you burn, you're going to put on weight. And I think a lot of people get attached to a method just because it was popularized during a certain time. And yeah, it might work, but it doesn't mean that that's the whole reason for it. And people say, there's so many adverts like keto benefits, like you can burn more fat doing keto. Yes, because that's all you're eating is fat and protein. You're going to utilize fat as an energy source if you haven't got carbs as an availability. So I think in that realm, just realize and be, the research is there for a reason, and the research is constantly updating. No one's views should be set in stone, because science can change and things can come out that will counteract contradict, that's the word, I'm rubbish today. So some things will come out that will contradict previous research, and then that's where you've got to stay up to date in the whole research side of things, because everything's always evolving and is never a one-way thing. That is, if that's my opinion now in say 2020, my opinion in 2023 could be vastly different because of what's come out.
It's like when we chatted about the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like, be ready. It's like, don't have biases. Don't have just one set view and make that your be all and end all view. Be ready to change your mind on something at any moment, because new evidence is coming out always. And if you don't sort of like keep up to date with that, and you're still kind of like within the outdated realm because it's tried and tested, you're gonna be left behind with that sort of evidence, really.
Yeah. So,
which is what I feel like younger PTs have got going from a little bit more. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like all older practitioners, because like that's like who I learn from, is like older practitioners.
Yeah,
just
and
like,
I think research is now more readily available. For those that don't know, I'll give a little tip. If you ever want to access a journal article that you might not have, is something called scihub.tw, I think it is now. So it's sci-hub.tw. And all you need to do on there is input either the journal article title, the PubMed ID, or the DOI, and it will bring that article up free of charge for you to download and read. So if you are someone that wants to keep update with the research, jump on sci-hub.tw for any research
Joel with
stuff.
the plug.
Yeah. So I think that covers everything. First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who actually did put on the archive podcast energy drink thing. What's your favorites? Because we've had quite a few actual good suggestions that we've never heard of. So we will try and get those sorted for future reviews because we always like to try new stuff. Secondly, on my part, a little plug from me. I've started running something on my Instagram page called the Form Check Friday, which is just a series where you can send in your videos for review, and I will check your form, give you some training recommendations, some tips to improve your form, and then solidify those positions through some programming and exercise selection. So if you wanted to be a part of the Form Check Friday, we've had the first episode this Friday, and depending on how many submissions we get, it will either be every week or every other week. If you want to be a part, DM me. You can DM the page if you want. I'm not asked. Dan will probably get annoyed, but you can DM me, you can DM the page, or send me an email with your video that you want checked and a little description on it. So say if it was like a training lift, a 1 rep max, what percentage of your 1 rep max you're working at, and rep sets, things like that. And you can be featured on Form Check Friday. And hopefully your form, me helping you, will help others as well. And that's the
It's
goal.
free
Help as many
coaching.
people as possible.
It's effectively free coaching. Why
So,
wouldn't you?
if you want to be a part of that, you can. Yeah. And I'm going to do a final little plug. Dan is currently writing an article for a website called Minotaur Fitness. So that will be coming out later on this week if you want to go have a read. And it's based on...
It's an article on velocity-based training.
I didn't want to say it. If you didn't want to disclose, be like...
My experiences with we can cut it out if I choose not to, but yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be on velocity-based training, the ins and outs of it. We did a podcast with Chris, which was number 6, I think. So if you want to check out for an experienced view on it, you can listen to that, and then you can read Dan's article for his own up-to-date, as a newcomer in the industry, his application with VBT. So
shout out to Minotaur as well. Obviously, we're not affiliated or anything, but we are, quite familiar with the people who run it.
So
they're the most reasonably priced gym equipment thus far. A lot of extortion going on in the industry, especially when COVID has come around, and these guys just ain't having it. So go on.
There's, I think,
big on Minotaur is a free plug for you.
There we go. I think it's Minotaur Fitness on Instagram. I'll double check now. I think
Minotaur Fit, isn't it?
Minotaur_fit, and then the website is minotaurfitness.co.uk. Yeah, they're running out of stock, to be honest. So if you did want to grab, I know they got dumbbells up there now. So if you want to get an order for some dumbbells, they got some crumb bumpers coming in. They've got some barbells, resistance bands, which I always advocate. So if you want to get your hands on a resistance band, because who knows when gyms are opening up, because Mark Drakeford.
And when you do purchase bands, make sure you have a bath of them.
Yeah, because
make sure you bath of them.
Your bands need love too. So, thank you for listening to episode 11 of the Archive Podcast. We will be doing the breakdown this week at some point. Who knows when, but it will be happening. So, if you've got any questions from this podcast or anything you want answered, make sure you tune into the breakdown live on our Instagram at archive.podcast. And then, apart from that, that has been me, Joel Harris.
If you do enjoy the breakdown as well, if people do actually watch it, or you watch it after it's uploaded, please submit questions, because if we don't get any questions, we simply won't do it. That's the reality.
So, on that note, thanks for listening.
Yeah. And as always, pleasure.
Big love to all our fans. Thank you.